Wasn't like we're gonna get together. It's like, yeah, you're in. It's an open boat.
It is. Well, good thing it's warm. If it was cold here.
Cheers this morning, yeah?
Right in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty looking place, Joanne.
It is. They did it really nice.
Very nicely done.
Cameras.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Do I go straight or do I go
left?
Go around.
We used to go left, so maybe
Palladium?
we'll go left.
This is like a parking spot right here.
Let's just park right there. But yeah, if we're here, that's the spot right there.
That's all sanded and varnished. That color stands right out.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Beautiful dark,
Yeah.
a white spot inside.
How old's the teak?
Some of the trees is about 25 years old.
And how big is it? 20?
About this size.
That's that
About
size.
this size.
And how big is the good part, the wood?
The wood is about maybe this size. It's almost have the same color, but it's more darker. It's
darker.
more darker. But
darker.
you have this spotted here.
Yeah.
You have that white spot.
I like the dark one.
And the dark one. We have purple heart, which is right on the side here.
Oh, that's beautiful.
See?
too, Yeah.
So
Look
this
at
is
the
purple
inlay,
heart.
yeah.
So the first
So
one.
many hardwoods you can get here.
And this is rosewood to the leaf shape here. This is rosewood and purple heart.
The rosewood's hard to get. Right?
And mahogany. We have two kind of rosewood. We have the white
There's
and
gonna be a gate on it. That's where you pay your admission to go in.
So this is the Mass Pike of Hopkins.
Yeah. This is it, right? Beachfront. Pretty much everything's for sale.
Everything is for sale.
dimension internet value. He paints with his mouth. You see?
He got paints with his mouth.
Wow. And every 3 weeks he come paint right here at Garimaya.
Wow. Beautiful.
Nice work.
No,
Wow.
goodness.
Holy cow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he do real nice. You know, like seeing Olin, you see people in his situation at the market begging. He's doing something, and that's why I highly respect him a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, my wife.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Fred spoke very highly of your place.
Oh, okay.
Yep, we have to go find them.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Was you who called?
Fred, it was Fred on the phone. He says, oh, they're closed.
So you see the paint speaking to you now? The paint, they are speaking to you? Yeah.
Some of them are really exotic that kind of come up and do all crazy things. But mine is like just the single flowers on each. Oh, I know. It's the mottled leaf. You know, the leaf is as pretty as the flower.
Oh, yeah, you
It's
see-
light and dark green mottling on the leaf.
Yeah.
So I know that all of them are that kind. There's
Yeah.
little variations between them.
Yeah, an Appletonian or something like that. When it flowers, does it have like pink at the edge of the...
One of them
Yeah,
has
sure.
more pink tones like that. Yeah.
We used to, the first trip I came down here, picked up Papa's sailboat?
Over here.
Right up here, right? We had a sail out there, and this old, you know, it's like a thing back then it was the Neans. Big, wide, you know, 2-mile-an-hour boat, 4-mile-an-hour boat. But it was great looking. A lot of character.
It's a dry season, the whole river, everything is dead. Sometimes it gets so low, you can't get out of the boat. You don't have a choice. Done that many times. Hopefully there's a little channel now we can get through.
Good.
All right, Jonker.
Huh?
Let's see it in
Oh.
my that them too? Yeah. Where is their boat? Where's their boat?
Oh, what universities are here now?
Just, oh shucks.
Is it Bryn Mawr?
Bryn Mawr. Yeah, and
Cornell's gone?
Cornell's gone, but Craig stayed an extra 2 weeks, and his daughter's here because it kicked in automatically. So we do have 24-hour power, but we just ask at night if you can unplug anything that doesn't need to be plugged in, make sure you're conscious of lights.
Sure.
Just because we drain those batteries and the jet hasn't.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Problem
What
at
gets
all.
him going.
Oh, well.
Oh boy.
The
This
fresh
is
water is our most precious commodity, so we try and ask guests to be conservative in their water use. Not for drinking. Don't drink the tap water. We have 5-gallon bottles in your rooms and in the diners. But as far as bathing, just a real quick shower in the evening after your water activities are done.
Okay.
As whatever we have now is what we have to make last. The other thing to know is that you cannot flush toilet paper out here, so you have to put it in the bin, and then we have daily housekeeping.
Oh, okay.
We still have on our Facebook.
Get me music. After every hurricane, we think of a new place to put things.
But the trees have held up well.
Yeah, they look nice and healthy.
Boy, it's beautiful.
Can't tell you how many coconut trees this
Well,
guy.
we had a battle with these. Every 3 months, we had to inject
remember that?
each tree. Every 3
Does it work here?
You even had to do that out
There was a disease called lethal yellow leaf wiping out all the coconut trees. And so we had to inject them with tetracycline. And if you missed them, that was it, your tree would die.
Wow.
And we did lose a few trees, but
Yeah, you did good for that.
we did. Yeah, everybody had to
How did the
inject
ones out on Long Caye make it?
them.
No?
No.
Remember how many plants is out there?
Well, those all made it because those were disease resistant. Yeah, those are doing
Amazing.
great.
I wouldn't complain. It
All
looks
it can do-
beautiful.
It does. It's great.
Kind of nice that size.
Yeah,
most
I
of
think
them,
it-
most of them didn't do anything. I planted like 50 of them here. And I think we've got what, 3? Maybe something like that. A couple in the back.
Oh, it's too bad. The kids, some of the kids that were here had a whole bunch of coconut. Had it, but it flew off.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was funny. I should have taken a picture. What the heck?
That's from one of the guys here.
Oh, I see why you like the prints. Now I.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place to put them.
The bar used to be in
Yeah,
here.
they had some of those, one of those there.
That wall has been opened up. And a whole new deck is on. What kind of
It's nice to feel the breeze come through here.
Oh, it's so much nicer.
As soon as you walk up the stairs.
No, the stone's really cool.
So we get Wi-Fi in here. Password on it is lionfish, all one word, all small letters. In my office, I've got a couple shelves with some beach reads if you get time for reading or readers. But I've also got about 4 shelves just full of sunscreen, bug spray, assorted toiletries. Anything you need, just help yourself. When it comes time to leave, anything you don't want to carry, pay it forward. Seems like the more I give away, the more I get. Here's the hardworking girls here. They're doing some really interesting stuff. This is Fred Dodd. Founder of IZE. This is Fred Dodd. And this is soil samples they've been taking from the mangrove.
So you drill it down?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
With this.
With that, yeah.
That's what we're doing.
And I got permission from California to go in there and do this. So here we got lots of...
What are you finding? Anything?
We won't know until after we process the data, but we took cores on mangroves that have been proved recently, mangroves that were proved a while ago, and then mangroves that haven't been proved. And we're trying to test to see carbon sequestration.
Let me go see what's going here.
Mangroves.
Oh. And Fred, you remember Tom, leader of Bryn Mawr? You met him last time you were here, I think.
How you doing? Good, good. Very good. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having
Everything
us.
going well?
Yeah, it's going well. Did you see what 100 years of mangroves look like?
I know. I just
Isn't that interesting?
So this is
Okay.
about 100 years ago. So
Huh?
sea level rise is about 3 millimeters a year, right? So what this is suggesting, this is just first guess. You know, we were talking about actually carbon dating this stuff. Is that, you know, if you get a ruler here, we think that the mangroves, in general, keep pace with sea level rise by growing a millimeter a year. So 3 millimeters a year.
Millimeter.
3 millimeters a year. So right here, 30 millimeters. That's where you still have mangrove roots. That's suggesting that maybe they may have been here 100 years ago. But below that point, we're not seeing much. So here's the question. We're going to see, like, you know, part of this is active rooting as well. And if we find any live fragments down here, like for example, this one, we're at around 40 centimeters. We're probably going to carbon date that one. We're going to actually see how old is that segment. So we can actually get an idea of how
Carbon
old.
date that. He's been here for 40 centimeters.
Could it be that it's moving in with erosion?
Well, it is. Well, part of it is what we did is we took these cores in the middle of them.
Okay.
So we have one group of students that's going around and they're actually measuring the diameter of the trees. And by measuring the diameter of the trees, we can figure out using DBH, diameter of breast height, we can figure out what's the total biomass. So we'll figure out what's the carbon inventory above ground. This is what we're looking at, carbon inventory below ground. The other students are looking around and looking at what fish are swimming in the roots. Yeah. Actually affiliated with Smithsonian. So I have, you know, I have a Smithsonian affiliation. So there, I talked to the guy in Florida, Fort Pierce, Zach. And Zach's like, yeah, you know, they're not charging us or anything, so we can just go over, drop them at the grade.
Who's the station manager?
So now it's Edmund something, but he's switching out.
Still act up?
If he's been left alone for a while.
Yeah. I have an albino corn snake, an albino, whatever it is, red and white corn snake. I have a Florida gopher tortoise.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Well, this friend of mine, who is no longer alive, he's bad drunk. He puts it in a post office box. It's about this big. He puts my address on it, and the post office delivers it. And so I called up Fish and Wildlife in the state, and I said, I got this federally endangered tortoise. Let's get it back. And they say they won't take it because it's gotten any diseases. So I've had it for years.
Is it full size now?
Yeah, he's
I was rocking. I love that game. It's one of
of my favorite. Yeah. Let's get it. Stuck out there. Someday, you know, I can. Yeah. Yeah.
What was he trying to do? Bury the rock?
Yeah, and they serve one summon. One summon.
One summons?
Yeah.
To who?
For some
Lobster fishing.
Did you bring the ball again? Oh, what am I going to do with you? Come on. Let's go.
I just want to just say we're really lucky. We have Fred Dodd here. He's actually the owner of IZE. I met Fred when I came on our first trip in Blue Creek first, and he followed me out here to IZE. So I heard some of his stories. They're really interesting. And then this afternoon, while you guys were doing all the fun field work, I was actually talking to Fred, and he told me about the history of the island and how he came to be the owner of the island and some of the natural history. Part of the island. Well, I mean, he doesn't own the whole island, but it's actually a really interesting story. I don't know if you get to hear about Blue Creek, because we haven't gone to Blue Creek, but that was a different story. That was really cool. So I know Fred's a herpetologist by training. He did his math. Yeah, cool, isn't it? So I think,
which is the study of what?
Reptiles.
Birds.
Amphibians.
So from my knowledge, Fred is a naturalist, likes adventure travel, photography, and you know, so we thought it'd be really nice, rather than Pedro and I talking to you every night like you've been doing in the past. So tomorrow we'll have a sort of a mini lecture in terms of just getting back to regrouping before our trip comes to a conclusion. That also gives us one more day to collect anything else we may want to do or discuss anything else. But for today's evening programming, we thought we'd have Fred talk to us and also ask any questions you may have as well. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right, so where do I begin? Back 1970. It was February actually, 1970. So it was about 47 years ago. I was doing graduate work at the University of Northern Arizona in herpetology, and needed a place to go and do my research. I had done all of my classwork and everything, and now I needed to do my research and get a dissertation in. So I decided Venezuela was where I was going to go. And that would be the country that I could find the most herps, and it would be great. So I got in my van and headed for Venezuela, and I made it as far as British Honduras, which is now
Belize.
Belize, yeah. So back in 1970, the British Honduras was definitely a little British colony. There was basically nothing here. The police rode around on bicycles. There was no pavement in the country, certainly no stop signs, no stoplights, no TV, radio, yes, but no movies or anything like that. It was very, very primitive. So I ended up going down through the Hummingbird Highway. Did you fly here or did you drive?
We drove down.
On the bus?
Yeah, the bus, yeah.
Okay. So you know the road I came down. However, that road now is a much nicer road than it was. In 1970, it was probably about 8 feet wide and it had 3-foot deep potholes, every 6 feet. It literally would take hours and hours to come down, to get to Dan Briga. Well, I pulled into Dan Briga town, got out to the end of the road there, and there was the beach, and we're looking, okay, now what? And this little boy came up to me and said, hey, mister, there's all these beautiful islands out here, and I can arrange for you to go out to these islands and and check them out. And you can go out there, you have to stay for a week, and we'll give you basically a book of matches and a spear gun, and good luck. We'll be back in a week to pick you up. So he introduced me to the owner at the time of Pelican Beach Hotel, which is probably the larger of all the hotels on the mainland in Dan Briga. And it was their first day of opening. So we got in the boat. It was an old inboard boat that, it seemed like it could barely run, but after a couple of hours of chugging through the surf, he dropped us off on Caribou Caye. Did you go to Caribou Caye for the
Yeah, some of us that we're going to go tomorrow.
Okay. All right, so those of you who know the island know that it's very small, but back when I first went on the island, it was probably a good maybe, 4 or 5 acres or so, 2 or 3 times at least the size that it is now. We're going to get into the reason why that is in a few minutes, but let me just keep going with this. So we went to Caribou Caye. We spent a week on the island. Had kind of our doubts what we were going to eat. The coconuts looked good, and the hermit crabs around, and the last ditch effort. But surprisingly, there were conch and lobster everywhere. And literally, you could have your fill of lobster. And we did. And we did use the spear gun. We got fish. And we had a great time. It was absolutely fantastic. We never saw another person, never saw another boat, nothing. There was nothing out there but just us. And so after that trip, I went back to Arizona, and I was very, very close with my major professor in herpetology. And he said, Fred, you've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe you should think about starting a business with something that you're really passionate about and you really love to do. And because you said, and this is back now in the early 1970s, and you're saying, when you get your PhD in biology, it's very difficult. I don't know what it's like now, but it's very difficult at that time to find a position with the university somewhere.
It's even worse now.
Is it? Yeah. It was very, very difficult. He said, when we have an opening in our biology department, we get over 500 applicants. And many of these applicants are much more qualified than somebody who's just getting out of school. So hearing that, I said, oh, geez, maybe I should look into something else. And right along that same time, the Boston Zoological Society, Boston is where I'm from, the Boston Zoological Society.
There's a lot of people from Boston here.
So, well then the Boston Zoological Society and the NDC offered me a position as I was going to be the curator of herpetology for the brand new Boston Zoo. And I thought I died and went to heaven. That was the next best thing since sliced bread. I'm going to be the curator. But in the meantime, there wasn't any zoo. There wasn't even really any real plans to get this thing off the ground. There was nothing started. So they decided that I could be in charge of the birds, the aviary, at at the Stone Zoo. Those of you from Boston, I'm sure you know Stone and Mass Stone Zoo. Anyway, so one day, after about 3 or 4 months of working there and making about $2 an hour, I was coming into the aviary, this huge glass building. And there was a walkway that kind of S-shaped its way down from a higher level down to a lower level, and then you exited out the bottom of the aviary. Well, one morning I was there around the duck pool, which had sand around this little cement pool. And I was raking up the sand, and this family came in, and I could, overhear them talking and everything. And this little boy was saying to his dad, Dad, what's that man doing? I said, son, he's cleaning up after the birds, and that's what's going to happen to you if you don't go to college. And I said, okay, this is a light bulb went on, yes. I better try for something else. So I thought, well, what do I love to do? My major professor was right. Do something you're passionate about. If you do something you're passionate about, you'll succeed. Don't give up, just keep going. So I decided, well, I love nature photography. I love traveling, and I love teaching. So I decided, well, you know what? I'm just going to go back to British Honduras. I'm going to, start doing expeditions for people there, and I'm going to do photography, and we're going to travel around, and I'm going to, teach tropical biology from, what I knew then as a youngster to the people who come on the trip. So I put together an ad, put it in the Boston Globe, and voila, a couple of weeks later, I had about 12 or 13 people who wanted to go on a 3-week experimental trip to the Yucatan. And at the time, I didn't concentrate on Belize. It was Yucatan, Mexico, Guatemala, the Petén area of Guatemala, and then all of British Honduras. The trip was great fun. We rented 3 Land Rovers. We basically ate out of cans, dry food, whatever we could round up, and we just headed out. Parts unknown. Here's a dirt road. Let's see where that goes. We had 4-wheel drive vehicles. Now back then, there were no buses. There were very few cars. Most of the vehicles on the road were Land Rovers. And so we rented 3 Land Rovers, as I said, and drove all around the country. We had a great time. And whenever it would get dark, wherever we were, we'd get out of the car, pitch the tent. That was it. That was our evening. And then the next morning, get up and go somewhere else. And we photographed and collected and caught and released lizards and snakes and turtles, and saw all kinds of yagarundis, and we even saw a margay the first trip, and howler monkeys, and it was like heaven. It was super great. We just had a blast. So I said, this is it. But I can't go back working at the zoo because I can't live on $2 an hour. And so when I was in school, I put myself through school. I had a painting company. I painted houses. And that made a lot more money than $2 an hour. So I went back, continued painting houses. In the meantime, putting out that expedition thing, the Boston Globe, Audubon magazine. We just started, wherever I could afford to, put ads in different papers and so on. And trips started coming. People started coming, and we would narrow down where we were going to go. We got a little more organized and set up different hotels, and I worked deals with the people here in the country, and headed out to, with our groups, we started using Caribou Caye for about the first 2 or 3 years. And we would, as you are on Water Caye and we go over to Caribou Caye for a visit, we would do just the opposite. We were on Caribou Caye and we would come to Water Caye for a visit. And at the time, it looked nothing like it does now. It was completely wild, run over with vegetation. And it was, again, not substantially, but larger than it is now. Okay, it has felt the effects of some erosion, which we'll tell you about. But so we started coming here, and we were basically camping. We set up tents, and it was just at that point now it was just different lay people. Then I got a call from a professor at the University of Toronto, a bear in mind, I think my largest group was like 13 people. So I got a call from a professor at the University of Toronto, said, we have a consortium of colleges here, we have Carleton and Guelph and Toronto, and we'd like you to run an expedition for us to British Honduras. And I said, oh, no problem, yeah, fine, how many people do you have? Oh, we have 152 people. 150, did you say 152 people? He said, yeah, I said, of course we could do that. Absolutely, no problem. So, the main mode of transportation, since, remember I told you there were no buses here at the time, were these Bedford trucks. Now, a Bedford truck is like a big freight truck. It's got the cab, it's got like a canopy top, and it would have wooden bench seats in the back of the truck. So I rented, I think it was 7 of those trucks. I think 2 or 3 of them just carried luggage alone. And what we did is we took the 152 people and we divided them up between the rainforest of Blue Creek, a kind of a semi-deciduous forest up in the Hummingbird Highway toward Belmo Pond. And we put a group up there, and we had a group out here on South Water Caye. And we had like a basic tenting colony out in this whole area. And again, it worked great. Everything, it was a success. Everybody loved it, and I thought, yes, I'm on the road. And now I decided, well, you know what? Why am I spending hundreds, thousands of dollars putting ads in papers like magazines like, National Wildlife at the time, Audubon magazine. It was very, very expensive to advertise to get 2 or 3 people. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go find the professors. I'll get the professors, let them get the people. And so that's exactly what I did. I put together 144 slides in a carousel, called up different biology departments. At this time now, back in the early 70s, there wasn't the schools weren't traveling like they are now. I know when I was in school, in graduate school, we didn't have these kind of field trips. The only field trip we'd have was for maybe Saturday to go to the desert to look for tortoises or something. That would be it. So it was kind of a new concept, and it was bring your students to British Honduras. You go free. And we can do research, and you can write about the research, and you can offer this as a course on campus. So that was my new marketing strategy, which is one that paid off, obviously, and it worked well for many years. But then there were always gaps when colleges couldn't come, in time endurance session, you can't travel. So we would have low periods. And what was very difficult in those low periods was the fact that I would have to let the staff go. And that was very difficult for me because I know they depend on me, for their families and their livelihood. So we said, what we'll do? We'll have school groups and we'll have cottage people. So we'll make up some cottages, and we'll charge the cottage people much more to offset the price that it costs for operation. And so we started doing just that, having lay people come, and also as well as we would do like Audubon groups, Sierra Club, Point Reyes Bird Observatory people, and they would come as well, and we would book them in spaces when schools couldn't travel. But my main love, my main thrust was the college groups that come. And in the beginning, I would lead every group and teach every group because many of the professors who came had never even been to the tropics. I don't know, do you know, heard of Dr. John Kreischer wrote, he writes all the tropical field guide books now. Anyway, he got his start coming here with us. But, you know what, I'm digressing. We're supposed to be talking about how I found the island, right? Here you go with other things. All right, back to So, all right. So, Smithsonian came in the, maybe it was the mid to late 70s, came to Carryville Caye, and we could no longer use Carryville Caye. So we came over here and started using South Water Caye. And the property that you're on now, there was only one very small shack on the property here with one caretaker that lived in that shack. And there was nobody over in this direction. So we took down an old schoolhouse up in the valley, took it out here in pieces, and built the University of South Water Caye. And that's where we would house our student groups. At the time, there were many more mangroves than you see now. A lot more vegetation, ground cover. Particularly if you've, I don't know if you've wandered around the island and seen some of the other places where they've just basically scarified the earth. I mean, there's just nothing left but sand. And, you know, their concept was that tourists want to come and see beautiful white sand. They don't want to see vegetation all over the place. They don't want to have mangroves blocking the view, harboring flies, the detritus that, you know, that the mangrove roots collect. You know, it might be a little bit of a sulfur offensive smell or something. So they cleared the mangroves. And then they actually started getting upset with me for not clearing them. But I've got to have myself. I've got to go back a little bit there. When we were over there, using that part of the property, there used to be, as I told you, one caretaker, a man that lived here. He was a very, very dear gentleman. I mean, really like a sweetheart of a guy if there ever was one. And his name was Turtle Dan. I called him Turtle Dan. His name was Dan Leslie. Turtle Dan made his living catching sea turtles. And of course, being a herpetologist, that was like, oh, well, you can't do that. So practically every penny I would ever make, I'd buy sea turtles. So all I did was, you know, buy sea turtles from Turtle Dan, and he thought it was quite humorous, you know. And then one day he said to me, "Hey Fred, don't you notice what's going on here? You bought that turtle 5 times." And then I realized that these sea turtles do have a pattern. You know, when they go to graze in the daytime, and at night they go to different places to sleep. He figured out these patterns and would set these drift nets. Or when the turtles would be breeding, he would have these drift nets floating with wooden turtles floating on top, so that these sea turtles would think, oh, there's a turtle, I can go mate with that turtle and get stuck up in the grass, in the net. So he used to bring them in, I used to buy them, take them out, let them go. One day he said to me, he said, "Ben, you know, we get along really great, I really like you. I'm going to give you a piece of my land, right? Over here, this strip where, you know, the old greenhouse where I live in there at the top by the bar? Okay. From that little strip, you know, going east to west." And I thought, oh, great, you know, this is really nice. I'm getting, you know, going to give me a piece of land. I'm going to live at Turtle Dan. I'm going to spend all my money buying turtles. Trying to convince him that, you know, we need to catch something else besides turtles, and we need to leave them alone, which wasn't working out very well. But anyway, so at the time I had a group from the New School of Social Research, from New York City. And they were a group of adults, and I was talking to them one night, and I just have to mention, oh, you know, I'm real psyched, you know, I just got this piece of property here from Turtle Dan, and we're going to be able to make a little house and have my little place on the island. And one of the women on the trip came up to me a few minutes later and says, hey, how about this, I'll make a deal with you. I said, really, why? She said, I'll put up the money and I'll build the house. You let me design it, I'll build the house, it's your house, you can rent it, you keep it, you stay there. All I want out of the deal is 2 weeks a year to come down and peg my hat. And I thought, sure, that works, you know, so we were off. Her husband started designing that house, and we were getting ready to get going with the project, and I get a phone call. And the phone call is from Mr. Len Bowman, who actually has a little piece of property right down adjacent to the Blue Mountain. And he called me up and says, hey Fred, you know, man, he says, you know, I'm really sorry, but Dan Leslie doesn't own that land. I do. And I heard that you're about to build a house on it. You know, it's my land. And I said, really? He told me that he owned it. He said, no, He thinks he claims it because he's been on it for more than 20 years and he has squatters' rights. And I don't have the heart to throw him off. You know, he was an old man. I don't have the heart to throw him off, so I'm just kind of waiting for him to die and then I'll move back over. So, and now I didn't know what to tell Dan. You know, I can't go to Dan and say, oh, this happened. Just wait for you to die, you know. Then you can go. But anyway, so he said, so, you know what? I'm going to let you build out there anyway. I'll give you a lease. It's just a strip of land. You can have it anyway. And go ahead and build. So I said, okay, great, thanks, you know. And a couple of days later, he calls up again. He said, oh, you're not going to believe it. I just got an offer from the Japanese for $125,000 for this piece of land. And I'm really sorry, but I need the money and I've got to sell it. Unless you can come up with $125,000 within 48 hours. And that, he might as well say 10 million, you know, back then. So I just basically wrote it off in my mind. I called up Stella Chastain and said, Stella, not going to happen. You know, Len Bowman owns the land. He's got an offer from the Japanese, and it's gone. You know, and she said, oh, well, you know, we tried and all that kind of stuff. We talked a little bit, hung up. 2 minutes later, the phone rings. And it's Stella Chastain and says, I'm overnighting you $125,000. I'm like, what? So she did. The next day, FedEx comes to my door with $125,000. She says, go down to New Orleans where Len Bowman lived and buy that piece of property. So that's how that came about. This piece of property here. So, and tell them, you know, how much I wanted to buy the land. I wanted to, you know, tell me the land, I want to buy the land. Finally, they said, oh, okay, you know, you can buy the land, but you have to go and talk to the our headquarters in the States. And I said, well, where is that? It's in Rhode Island. Well, of course, you know, Rhode Island's in my backyard. So I made arrangements with that piece of land, told Stella about it. Get rid of this, get the land. I invited some people in on it with me, the local people. Didn't kind of work out, and decided, well, you know what? I needed cash to build this building and to build some of the cottages and so on. So I generated the money by selling out my interest in the property next door here. Big mistake in retrospect, but anyway, can't have it all, I guess. So they bought me out, and I built this building here. Since this building was built in, I think it was probably around the mid-'80s, but somehow that this was built, it's probably been rebuilt 3 or 4 times at least. You know, we have a constant battle out here with the termites. I know that this whole end, this wing here where you're in now, is going to have to be rebuilt this summer. This fall after our season closes. And it's a constant battle with the elements. Now, the battle with the elements. So after I have this property now, everybody who were landowners on the island, you know, had cut down the mangroves, had cleared the vegetation off the island, and they come to me and said, Fred, you got to do something. You can't leave those mangroves out there. You know, they're cutting down the breeze. Nobody's going to come here. You know, they're collecting all kinds of, the Belize term is morass. They're collecting all kinds of, you know, garbage and stuff in the roots. Harbors flies. So I said, yeah, but you know what, if I cut that down, I'm going to have to be building cement walls like you are. And I'm going to have to be, I'm going to be a constant battle against the sea. I'll let nature take care of it for me. And I've lost nothing. In the 47 years I've been on coming and going off South Water Caye, at this end here, I've lost absolutely nothing. If anything, we gained a little by the mangroves, you know, going further out. Where I have lost a little is back here. Not a lot, but you can see we had to put some stones and stuff in there too, a little bit to stop erosion. And what happens is, depending on which way the wind shifts, that'll all get covered over with sand again, and then the sand will, you know, get washed off. It just kind of like keeps coming and going. Down at the end, down here at the south end of the island, they stripped everything off. That beach used to be, you know, 200 or 300 feet long off that end. And I've got pictures of it that I look at and go, wow, you know, and now you see it's all boulders where they're trying to put it back. And that sandbar that you see that's coming out on the end now on that south west end, when the storm gets right, which will be probably in May and June, the winds start coming out of the southwest here, all that sand will be put back on my rocks. Here. They're just borrowing it for a while. That'll all come back. All right, so then you know, I kept the vegetation, as you can see. We just made little paths, and then what we eventually did is we put the pimento sticks to outline the paths, because people would take shortcuts and go through the vegetation. And vegetation on an island like this is like, you know, it has a really, really tough time to get hold here, because it's basically just dry, hot sand. And, you know, all our water, you know, comes from the rain. And March, April, May can be completely dry. I'm sure that Barbara probably told you during the orientation, you'll take military showers. Under almost every building, we have gigantic vats, I mean swimming pool-sized vats, to store water during the rainy season. And then we even have extra, along the back boundary, we have extra big tanks that hold, you know, hundreds and some of them thousands of gallons of water. But believe it or not, even though you're taking a military shower, we come close to running out of water by the end of the dry season. And sometimes we've been so close that we're down to just a few barrels left. And then, thank God, it rains. And, you know, and when it rains here, it can really rain. As you probably see. But in the rainy season, sometimes it'll rain like that for 4 or 5 hours, just coming down in sheets. And it quickly fills up everything for us. So we're very, very, you know, dependent on that water. There are wells on the island. The island does have a freshwater lens. Because, you know, the freshwater floats on top of the salt water. If it's not disturbed, you'll keep that lens. But what happens is a lot of people on the island will dig these wells and they pump the water out of them for toilets, because toilets can deal with brackish water. So then during the dry season, that freshwater lens disappears. And a lot of these plants, the plants that you see that are really well established here, are dependent on those freshwater lenses, you know, during the dry season. So that's, you know, something too that, you know, has to be closely looked at, because if you notice some of the big trees out here, the larger trees, they'll drop their leaves, which isn't indicative necessarily because of the freshwater lens disappearing. They do this anyway during the dry season to protect themselves. Belize, you know, all throughout Belize, everybody says, oh yeah, you know, we have a rainforest place here, we have a rainforest place there. And they really don't. It's really a semi-deciduous broadleaf forest. There is a marked dry season. They have a rainforest. You have to have a certain amount of rain consistently throughout the year to be really classified truly as a rainforest. Belize has very little of that, and it's in the southern part of the country. Down in the Toledo district where Blue Creek is, they get, you know, 200 plus inches of rain a year. That's a lot of water. Out here on the island, we probably get about 40 to 50 inches of rain a year. Back on the mainland, about, I think it's around 60 or 80. And the reason is because, you know, the weather is coming out of the east to west, building up against the mountains here. And down at the Toledo area, the mountains come in from Honduras like this, and they come down from Belize like this, and they're cause a boxed in. All the clouds get boxed in this area here. So today, where we probably had very little rain down in Blue Creek, it could have been pouring all day. Or it could be sunny, you don't know, but it does get a lot more rain than what we get out here. All right, we're about to go with that now. We're talking about rain. Well, I open it up to any questions. Anybody have any questions about the history of this island, about rainforests, about anything? Anything you can think of you'd like to see if I can help. I'll try and answer it for you.
Yeah, are you still a herpetologist? Do you still
a quasi-herpetologist?
Do stuff with food?
I do. I actually still even have quite a few herbs at home. that I've had. Actually, some of them I've had since the 60s. You know, and I'm waiting for them to die. But I have some specimens of things that are endangered that, you know, you need permits for. I can't give them away. I really have to keep them or destroy them. I'm not going to destroy them. So I've got things like a bearded lizard that I've had since 1967. The thing is still going strong. It was an adult when I got it. They're only supposed to live to about 40 years, but it keeps going. I've got like alligator snapper and a few different snakes and some lizards and things that I have. I used to do a lot of lecturing with wildlife too, as well as when I was in between during trips to Belize. So I still have a love for it. If I'm still down in the rainforest, if I see a snake or something, I'll catch it, look at it, take pictures of it, let it go. I have an interesting story. I was here, one of my colleagues that works with me in the office, John, had never been to Belize, and I said, Belize, you got to come to Belize, you know, check it out. So I took him down to Blue Creek. And we're walking up the trail at night. Blue Creek, it's about a half-a-mile walk to get into where the field station is. And we're walking up this little trail, and he says to me, Ben, I haven't seen any snakes yet. And where are all the snakes? I said, well, John, you know, this is a pretty, you know, snakes are very secretive. You know, there's a lot of places for them to hide. They're here. But finding them is a different story. Just then, he says, Fred, there's a snake. And I look, and there's like a 5 or 6 foot fur lance. Oh, fur lance are not nice. So it was going across the trail, and I was going to turn the light on, and it went over the trail and down into a little hole in some rocks. So stupidly, I mean, if anybody should know, I should know. I take my flashlight, and I'm looking down, looking to see where the snake went. The next thing I know, all I can see is this white of this open mouth coming right at my face. And I jump back, and John, of course, is he didn't look back for 100 yards. You know. Anyway, so anybody have anything else they'd like to ask? Yeah.
So the mangroves out here aren't like very deep. Have they always been that kind of shallow level? Have they gotten more shallow?
Well, it's actually
the water depth, you mean, or the depth?
The water depth, yeah. Yeah, the water depth. Well, actually, it's building. If you notice in some of the areas here, the roots are catching enough detritus that's forming peat underneath, and also it has, you know, a good sand base that's washing around. So the mangroves are actually moving out from the island. Very little bit, but they are moving out rather than disappearing.
That's good. So do you know when that property, that's the Pelican
property,
when did they like replant their mangroves?
Quite a while ago. Actually, it was
because yours is quite a bit taller. So we measured them last time. I think yours are about 10 feet taller.
Right. We had the only crop of mangroves, and then they started realizing what was going on, and they started planting mangroves. But a lot of places that are planting mangroves, it's too late because they've done so much damage, and there's so much energy, wave energy on that shoreline. These, you know, the seed plots can't get hold. They're blown right out again. I know that, like at Caribou, they've been trying to plant mangroves everywhere, and it's been pretty much unsuccessful.
We'll see that tomorrow.
What do you do when you're not on the
Wishing I was here. No, actually, you know, my office is back in Sherborn, which is about 25 miles west of Boston. And I'm back trying to get things organized, marketing, doing things to try to get you know, more groups here and try to promote the business. Sort of. I should be doing more than I'm doing. You know, but,
This is more of like an infrastructure question. So I realized that like in the cement walls that you had to build, there's like glass bottles on like below it. Like is that done on purpose?
you know, I just realized that today. Yeah, Joanna just pointed that out to me. You know, there's glass bottles in the cement. I have no idea. It was probably some sort of a lark. I'm sure it's for no benefit at all. I can't imagine it could be of any use, but they probably were lying there, they mixed up the cement, they went, but, and that was all done, I I wasn't here at the time when that was done. So I didn't know about it, but no, there's no, serves no purpose. Anything, any question?
So yeah, we've been, climbing through the mangroves.
Sorry?
We've been, climbing through the mangroves, and the ones out here seem a lot sturdier than the ones on the other parts of the island. Is there some special way that you're pruning them or taking care of them that makes that, or is it because they're older? Or?
No, actually, to be honest with you, I don't know why that is, but we're not pruning them to make them sturdier. The only pruning part is, if you'll see it, it's just kind of, you're sitting on a porch here, it's kind of at a level, so you do have a little bit of visibility, and you do have a little bit of breeze coming through without damaging the plant itself. Because the part that's really holding the island together, of course, are the roots. So, I don't know why, I never noticed that, so I don't know why that they would be sturdier.
Do guests complain about the mangroves being in front of their house?
Nobody does, because I always explain to them why they're there. And once you realize why they're there, then they go, oh, good idea. So, I've never, that I know of, and I'm not here all the time, but I've never had anybody that's complained about the mangroves. One time, I did have somebody say that, geez, I thought I saw a rat in the mangrove. And I said, no, that's just a naked-tailed mangrove opossum. Oh, okay.
You can see iguana the other day.
Yeah, it's an iguana.
Yeah, I have to go and check that, because I have never seen an iguana, well, I haven't seen an iguana here for many years. But now it's either somebody brought it out and let it go, or, it
was pretty big. It wasn't how.
It was like
So it was just off the north side of the property. It was maybe a couple feet long.
But the orange looking.
Yeah.
It was gray with an orange spine.
Yeah, so that would be a male.
Yeah.
Females are more dark colored, they don't have the orange on them.
It was just chilling.
Yeah, they get, I have a picture of an iguana, a male, that I'm 6'2", and its head is above my head, its body is like this, and its tail is still curled on the ground. So I'm guessing it has to be at least 7 feet. There can be some big iguanas here.
Was that in Blue Creek? Was that in Blue Creek area?
Yes, yeah, it was, yeah. Anybody else? One? Going once, twice? Oh.
Do you know ownership go to because if you go around, you can see that there's so many other islands here too. Are the other islands here privately owned, or?
That's a good question. There's a good history about what's going on with the islands around here. I'll try to be brief. But, for example, Twin Keys. You went there with snorkel, right? Yep. Okay. Twin Keys was a government-owned island. And what happens is, when islands became very valuable, which they are now, they're basically priceless to buy land on an island like this now. Back in the days when I was here, they were very cheap. You could get almost anything you wanted to. So once the price went up, then the locals started grabbing pieces of mangrove swamps. Now there's hundreds of islands in the country of Belize, only a handful of them are located directly on the barrier reef. Most of them are in the back lagoon areas. So, which Twin Keys is, Tobacco Range when you went over here. So what happened is locals would buy up a 5-acre chunk from the government of Belize. And then they started clearing the mangroves and pumping sand onto the island. And to make it look pretty, plant some coconut trees, and then sell it to unsuspecting Californians and Texans. They would come down, and they would buy them. I see them all the time. They're coming down, for example, Cocoa Plum Key, the island, the first island, when you were coming out here, the first island you saw on your left, that long strip of island, that's all broken apart now by storms. When I first came here, that was one big contiguous island, probably almost a mile long. And now it's all fragmented. Well, that was all purchased by gringos who wanted to come and own their own island in Belize. And they had no clue that clearing the mangroves, is clearing themselves of an island. And you go over to Thatch Key now, or as each different person bought Coca Plum Key. It was known as Coca Plum Key. As each person bought it, they named it their own name. Okay, so it's got multiple names now, all the little fragmented pieces. But if you ever happen to go by there, you will see such vain attempts at keeping back the sea at huge expenses. There was even a gentleman I know from Texas who just sold his company for something like $33 million, bought an island, and now all he's doing is, you know those, I don't know what they call them, it's kind of like these big steel plates that you can hammer down into the ground. So he's got this ugly stuff all around the island, trying to hold back the sea. But even that, it's not working. It's going over, it's eating away the sand on the other side, washing it off. You know, so yeah, it's
Where are the Joes?
Do you know how local life is, or I guess how like locals like interact with the game? Like, because I guess I had a very like short conversation with one of the guys that was like grown up in this area. Like, what is that like? Do they just like kind of grow up on one island and then like I guess go wherever to find work?
yes. A lot of the locals here, like in Danbury, all of these people that work for us and work for other people on the islands and so on, are natives mostly of Danbury. And they've basically been born on the sea and on some of these islands since they were little kids. So they know it backwards and forwards. They're constantly changing, jobs all the time. Because they'll work for maybe 3 or 4 months or something, and then they get some money and they're gone. And then they come back and they'll work at another place. And so we try to, our staff, has been with us for many, many years. Like Sherry in the kitchen has been with us for probably like 30, 35 years. Long, long time. And we get people that are really good and really dependable, and we pay them really well and take good care of them, and we keep them. But they do move around a lot. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. If you do have any other questions, I'll be here for I guess a few more days. I'll be here as long as you will be. So come and find me, and I'll be happy to talk shop. Anything? Thank you.
I get the picture of Fred,
Beautiful.
Beautiful as always.
Yep.
Thank you.
Busy afternoon, man. Yeah.